Hello guys and welcome to Roundup number 2 of the season, this time at Snetterton. Not my favourite track from a viewing perspective, but British Touring Cars always put on a show wherever they go. Make sure to like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and I won't waste any more time, so let's get straight into Snetterton. Starting with British Touring Cars then, qualifying Group 1, Tom Chilton with the pace in the Hyundai, which was very nice to see. Josh Cook was second in this one, Dan Camish third, and Dan Rowbottom and Adam Morgan making it Plato Racing Mercedes 4 and 5, a much improved qualifying from Brands Hatch. Aidan Moffat 6th, then Sam Osborne and Lewis Selby for Napa 7th and 8th, Chris Smiley 9th, Ricky Collard only managing 10th in this one, and then Max Buxton completes your 11. So yeah, as I said, much better for Plato Racing after a very disheartening and disappointing Brands Hatch. Collard is sort of the opposite, really, after his immense run at Brands. Suffered quite a bit in quali, and yeah, his car looked a right handful. His couple of onboard moments and external camera shots as well, coming through pretty much any corner on the track, and he did a rather nasty snap at the rear and have to correct it, which is far from ideal. So yeah, only managing 10th there, but he was still able to salvage some solid results out of the weekend. Quali Group 2, Charles Rainford topped that one, followed by Ingram, then James Dorling in third, Ash Sutton fourth, Dowsley on fifth, Patterson sixth, then Doble, Shedden, Taylor Smith, and Nick Hamilton. James Dorling then is a story of Quali 2, isn't he, for Restart Racing? Chris Smiley's teammate only 9th in Q1. This was a very, very good showing for James. Obviously, James' engine woes at Brands Hatch on the Saturday sort of just put him back for the weekend. But James is, I think I said in the Brands Roundup actually, James is a driver that, you know, impressed with the minimal amount of time he had in the Toyota Corolla last season. And he's a driver that I think, as the season progresses, will be creeping up the order and challenging for strong results and podiums. We saw Dan Lloyd get challenging for podiums eventually last season. Same with Chris Smiley. They were getting there. Progress was happening, and this is a fantastic early sign, isn't it, for Restart? P3 in Quali Group 2, only meeting 3 of the season as well, so they've got the rest of the season in front of them to hopefully work their way up the grid. Ash Sutton in 4th did a phenomenal job again. Minimal boost, and that can really kill you. With Snetterton, you got the start-finish straight, which goes on for a while, and then the back straight as well, of course, leading into the chicane. And Ash Sutton will be a bit more of a talking point for different reasons than usual as the video goes on. Who else can we talk about? Charles Rainford, topping Q2. He continues to impress, doesn't he? Continues to thrive in that BMW and throwing it around. He seems to be able to take this car to any circuit and compete high up the field. He is establishing himself as a regular front runner this season so far. So that's great to see. And it's great for WSR as well. So with the departure of Jake Hill, Colin Turkington over recent years, it's nice to see now that, and this is no disrespect to Dowd Leon, because he's getting good results of his own, but Charles Rainford seems to really be leading the way at the minute for West Surrey. So yeah, may it continue. May he continue to upset the odds and cause a bit of disruption to the favourites, the likes of Ingram and Sutton. Let's get into the quali race then. A bit of a talking point, isn't it? The Chilton versus Rainford skirmish on lap 1. Rainford was quite forceful up the inside, pushing Chilton wide, and Tom took to social media afterwards and was basically saying, how has he been allowed to keep the win? He shoved me off the road. He wouldn't have got past otherwise. So yeah, Chilton was somewhat surprised and disgruntled that Charles kept the victory. However, Chilton finished 8th because of a penalty for an out of position start and didn't really have the pace to get back on terms anyway. So at the end of the day, even if Rainford was to lose the win, it wouldn't be to any benefit of Tom. So yeah, bit of a a strange one there, a bit of a disagreement, but it's touring cars at the end of the day, and Chilton has been in Rainford's position, dishing out some robust moves plenty of times of his own over his seasons of racing. Cook second, which is lovely, isn't it? Because he gets such rotten luck, does Josh. So to start the weekend on a high was very much welcome, I would imagine, there for Cookie. Ingram was third, Camish fourth, Robo fifth, and De Leon sixth, Morden seventh, Chilton eighth, Dorlin down to ninth, and Osborne 10th. Yeah, this is where I start to talk about Ash Sutton and Napa. Throughout the weekend, right from the quali race, it was apparent that their car was somewhat quicker down the straights without any boost deployment than any other car on the grid. Quali race saw lap one, obviously no boost is available then, and Sutton drove through both the Hyundais of Chilton and Ingram down the back straight. He carved his way through with ease. He just drove past them, split them, and drove past them. And then Dan Camish, picking up a tow from Sutton just to help him, was also gaining, and then gave Sutton a nice big bump on the rear to cement the move. Obviously, Sutton's race would come undone in the race to pole because of a puncture, which saw him go off at Coram. He did very well to gather it across the grass and navigate his way to the pit lane safely. Let's move on to race one. Charles Rainford taking the victory, dominant one as well, lights to flag. Ingram was second, then DeLeon third, Cook fourth, Camish fifth, Rowbottom sixth, Chilton seventh, Ricky Collard eighth, James Dorlin another ninth place for him, and then Ash Sutton recovered on the back of the grid to 10th. We expect nothing less from Ash. Sutton he actually crossed the line in 11th, but Osborne got disqualified. I'm not entirely sure what for, but sometimes you need that luck, don't you, to be a champion. So much has to fall into place to become a British Touring Car champion, and just little things like that would suggest that this might be Sutton's year. And obviously he's already got a healthy points margin as well, but anything can happen in touring cars. By no means is anything settled this early. Adam Morgan, we just saw him dropping back in race one, really, and not fighting any positions. And I was a bit like, what's going on here then? Because Morgan's not the most aggressive of drivers, is he? But he was surrendering positions hand over fist really, really easily. And then we found out that he had an engine change before race two, which is an incredible job from the Plato Racing crew to get that done. And then Morgan was back out and competitive for the rest of the weekend. And race one was the first time on the Sunday they had to manage the heat because it was an absolute scorcher at Snetterton, an absolute scorcher. So a bit of management there. You can't follow a car too closely, otherwise you'll get bogged down in the dirty air. And tyres, obviously, you don't want them going off a cliff really soon in a race either. So it was a bit of a tactical race, was the first one. But one driver I want to talk about, as I did at Brands, is Ricky Collard, because miserable qualifying, made some progress in the quali race, but then an 8th place finish in race one. What a guy, so little time in the car before in fact, pretty nothing. Media day, the season launch at Brands was the first time he'd driven the car. First time I'd driven the car in the wet was at Brands a few weekends ago. Yeah, just what a guy. To be able to learn from your setup errors in qualifying. Obviously, you can't tinker with the car between the quali session and the quali race. So that handful of a Hyundai that he had to deal with for qualifying, he had to deal with for the quali race as well, and he still made progress. But yeah, top 10 finish. It's brilliant. It really is from Ricky and Virtue as well, of course, as a team. I'm going to get into race two because the winner was Ash Sutton, and then Collard was second, Chilton third, Camish fourth, Morgan fifth, Rowbottom sixth, Shedden seventh, Rainford eighth, Smiley ninth, and Darryl DeLeon 10th. The top four in this race, then you've got Napa, Virtue, Napa, and I think that sums up the class of the field right now, where the championship's at. Virtue and Napa are the two top outfits that the rest of the pack are ultimately trying to chase down. Sutton from 10th, Collard from 8th, Chilton from 7th. These are some fast cars. Again, the pace of the car for Napa, Sutton, we know he can win from 10th, in any car pretty much, but it's happening quite regularly, isn't it? He's only been once this season. The race one at Snetterton was the first time he didn't finish in the top two in a race. Just let that sink in a minute. British touring cars, that shouldn't really be happening. What we love about it is how open it is and how much anyone can really win. But at the minute, it is pretty dominant for Ash. But we'll come back to that, and we'll talk about a solid points haul for Plato Racing in this one. Morgan recovering from his engine woes in race one to fifth, finishing ahead of Rowbottom in sixth in this one. And Plato, I'd imagine, and Rowbottom as well, they hold themselves to very, very high standards, don't they? Rowbottom beats himself up constantly when he's not on the pace that he wants to be. And obviously JP, he's one of the best to ever do it. So they expect perfection even this early on into their venture, but they will expect perfection. So to bounce back, not with outstanding results at Snetterton, but just to reassert themselves in the top 10, would have been a much welcome relief to the team there. Something else to point out actually is a new brake pad installation on the cars. I'm not sure whether it was the same for everyone, but I know certainly for Napa and Virtue that their previous supplier had just stopped doing them, so they've had to get some new brake pads in. And Chilton was saying after qualifying that there's very little feel in the brakes, and it was taking quite a few goes, quite a few bites at the cherry to find out where the optimal braking point is at each corner now, because there wasn't much of a response from the pedal. So that's not ideal. And Camish, in race two before actually the start of the race on the grid, he also had some worry with the brakes, which I think is interesting to see. Really, we've had a couple of drivers there with feedback that these new brake pads aren't particularly well bedded in yet, so they'll have to sort that out before Alton Park. Alton Park is a track that is very hard on your brakes. Ingram, yeah, let's talk about Ingram, because he had a DNF. It was his second alternator failure of the season, but before that, he was in the lead of the race, and then at the Wilson's hairpin, with Sutton close behind, a huge lockup, completely self-inflicted. Very rare do you see a mistake from Ingram. Was that the new brake pads again? He's got Sutton in his mirrors, distracting him. Little dives to the inside, one way then the other, and Ingram snatches the brake and goes wide. And from there on, he was losing pace to the point where, coming out of a corner, he just lost all power and had to pull off. Got a little tap in the rear from a Plato and Mert to, for good measure. So that's race two. Then race three was a bit of a belter, wasn't it? As it was at Brands. No weather to throw into the mix, just pure racing from two of the best in Gordon Shedden and Ash Sutton. I'll take you through the results then. Gordon Shedden was your winner, with Sutton second, then DeLeon third, Chris Smiley fourth, Charles Rainford, Adam Morgan, Tom Chilton was seventh, Tom Ingram eighth, Dan Camish ninth, and Dan Rowbottom 10th. Before we get onto the main talking point then, Tom Ingram, while we're on the topic, a good bounce back, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Well, it was on the road. Anyway, P3 from the back of the grid, only to have a penalty, a track limits penalty, which would ultimately drop him to 8th. It was just not his weekend. It's one of them at the minute for Tom. He's not having the rub of the green, but he's a fighter, and ultimately he's a rapid race car driver, so he'll still be determined to take the fight to Sutton. Two major talking points actually, because Nick Hamilton was aiming to get a Jack Sears podium, and at Snetterton, did he not only pick up the podium, he picked up the race win for the Jack Sears trophy, and it was an incredibly emotional moment. Him stepping onto the podium, he broke down in tears. This is what he's dreaming of. This is why he's on the grid, for moments like this, to prove everyone that I can do this. I can get podiums. I can get trophies. I can be ultimately in the mix. I think the biggest thing for Nick is just to be competitive in any sense. He knows he's not got the outright pace to be challenging for regular top 10s and top 5s. But in the right car, which he is this he is this year, on the right day, Nick Hamilton is competitive, and that is all we want for him. That is all he wants. But let's waste no more time. Let's get on to the main talking point of race 3. Another win in 2 weekends for Laser Tools Racing. This time it was Gordon Shedden, and it was an absolute masterclass in defence. A couple of times it looked like Sutton had it, and then Shedden would fight back, use the boost to his advantage because he knew he had more of it, and he just put the car in all the right places. He used every ounce of his touring car expertise to keep Sutton at bay, and it was a fantastic watch to see the old guard get one over on the modern era of touring cars. Was fantastic, but I'm about to have a bit of a moan because there were times where Shedden was on the boost down the straight, Sutton was off the boost, and Sutton was keeping level. He was either able to keep his nose just on the rear quarter, or at some points even gain. It looked like it's not right, is what I'm saying. Jade Edwards, Paul O'Neill, Tim Harvey all mentioned it after the race. I think particularly Jade was quite opinionated. She did a good job of hiding it, but I think she was also saying, this shouldn't really be happening. And I think TOCA do have something to look into here, because the pace differential is clearly noticeable, and when it's that noticeable, that's when I think something's wrong. But that is not to overshadow what is a fantastic weekend again for the British touring cars. 2 wins in 2 for Laser Tools. Points again for Plato Racing after a dismal Brands. Very emotional Nicholas Hamilton. Brilliant. Many talking points, as there always is. Another cracking weekend. So we'll leave it with the championship points then, shall we? And it's Sutton that leads with 174 to Ingram on 117. Ingram's not that far in front of Rainford now. Rainford third, 106. Camish fourth, Collard fifth, De Leon sixth, Shedden 7th, Doble 8th, Morden 9th, and Chilton 10th. Doble in 8th there. He had a very very quiet, quite anonymous weekend at Snetterton, actually. But I'm sure he'll be aiming to bounce back a little bit stronger at Alton. Teams Championship, as far as that's concerned, it's Napa that lead WSR, then Team Virtue, Powermaxed and Laser Tools. Independence and Shedden leads that from Doble, De Leon, Rainford and Moffat. And finally, the Jack Sears Trophy is led by James Dorling, to Dexter Patterson, to Sam Osborne, Lewis Selby and Nicholas Hamilton. So that is it for the BTCC for Snetterton. Next time out at Alton Park, the Cheshire Cauldron. Absolute rollercoaster of a circuit. One mistake, 1 inch wide, one wheel on the grass, you're in the barriers. There is no room for error at Alton Park. Who will come out on top when we go there in a couple of weeks' time? Let's do British F4 next, shall we? Because they always deliver some top-notch action at Snetterton. The twisty technical nature of the Snetterton circuit makes for some good F4 racing. On to qualifying then. Let's get straight in. And it was Lewis Werrell who had some solid results at Brands, but this was a mega weekend for Lewis. So very impressive rookie opening few rounds for him. Adam Alazari was second, with Ethan Lennon third, and Theo Palmer fourth, Scott Kinlimblom fifth, Dries van Landendonk only managing sixth in this one, with Ethan Jeffall, Joseph Smith, George Prafanauda and Jarrett Clark completing your top 10 in qualifying. As for race 1, and Lewis Werrell took the victory from pole position for JHR Developments. Scott Lindblom was second, followed by Dries van Landendonk in third. Then it was Smith, Prafanauda, Palmer, Lennon, Jeffall, Alazari and Jarrett Clark completing your top 10. One thing to point out actually is if you're into your racing and you fancy a bit of British F4 action, this is the first year that races prior to Sunday are being streamed on YouTube. So you can catch the Saturday race and the one on Sunday morning before the broadcast begins, if it falls earlier in the day. And I was watching it, and it's very much a bonus, something to watch on the Saturday. Safety car in this one, Tommy Harfield. He doesn't get much luck, does Tommy? He hasn't over the last couple of years, and this year it's not continuing by the looks of it. He nearly rolled down the Craner curves at Donington, if you remember, and this one was at Rich's. I think it was a tangle with Timo Jundling, German driver, at turn 1. And yeah, it's your classic really. There's been a couple of incidents like this at T1 at Snet in British F4 over the years. Timo's down the inside, and Timo has a moment of oversteer. Has to correct it, and in doing so, catches Tommy, and Tommy's off and into the barriers. It's not much of a hit, but unfortunately, damage was enough to end his race there. But it was a well controlled, lights to flag victory for Lewis Werrell. Scott Lindblom second. Him and Janetta Juniors. I don't think he ever got a race win actually. Rocco Coronel, son of touring car great Tom Coronel, was pretty dominant in that season as his teammate. But Scott was very fast. He showed that. However, he was a wild child. Sort of your definition of a wild child was Scott. A couple of moves where he just very optimistically, very ambitiously throw it up the inside at corners, and he bounce off drivers left, right, and centre. He was a bit clumsy, he was, but keeping out of trouble in this one. And he's made a very solid start to the season, so it's good to see that he's reined it in a little bit, as Scott. Still carrying the Red Bull livery, of course. So yeah, who knows where he'll end up in the future, but it's certainly a much improved and bit more measured Scott Lindblom this year, which is good to see. Yeah, Dries only managing third. I say only managing third, but you know, it is Dries van Langendonk. He's been very, very impressive so far this season. We'll do race 2 then, and it was Timo Jungling, the German for JHR Developments. His first win, albeit in the reverse grid race, but a win is a win in British F4. And for a rookie as well to get your first one, that was a well controlled drive, like it was for Lewis Werrell in race 1 actually. Timo, his teammate, did a very good job here in race 2. Cash Felber, that's a couple of second places for him now, the American for Fortec in second. Van Langendonk with back-to-back thirds, and Proud for Nauda improving from 5th to 4th. Jeff Hall was 5th, with Lindblom 6th, Werrell 7th, Lennon 8th, Alizari 9th, and Cole Hewitson rounding out your top 10 there for Excel. Off the start of this one then, and the two virtuosis came together. So this is 2 races now of the season where virtuosi teammates, both times involving Jarrett Clark, have had to come in together on the straight off the start line on lap 1 before they even reached the first corner. So to do it once is never great as a team, you know, to your teammate, but to do it twice, it's, you know, very avoidable. Snetterton, it's a narrow start line, obviously, but you know, incidents with your teammate before you even reach turn 1 on the first lap. Yeah, bit of a slap over the wrist, I'd imagine, for Jarrett Clark. And then, yeah, Timo Jungling making it a 1-2 for JHR Developments, which was lovely to see. Race 3 then, and it was a second win of the weekend and a hat-trick for JHR Developments for Lewis Werrell there, getting his second of the weekend. Adam Alizari was second, Ethan Lennon third, Scott Lindblom fourth, Theo Palmer fifth, George Bradford now to sixth, Dries van Langendonk seventh, Ethan Jeff Hall eighth, Jarrett Clark ninth, and Tommy Harfield 10th. You can see across Brands and Snetterton that the drivers making the top 10 are most of the time the same, but obviously in different orders. It's brilliant to see that the grid is so competitive this year. I mentioned it at Brands, you know, that the nature of that circuit made the racing so close and so fiercely fought. Snetterton, longest track on the calendar, a completely different beast to Brands Hatch Indy. But these, you know, it's the same drivers that are getting the strong results. Shows you their quality. But it's really Lewis Werrell's weekend. And with that as well, actually, Lewis Werrell became the first double winner of the season. So if you want, you know, any example out there to demonstrate the competitiveness of this year's championship, that is it. It has taken race 3 at Snetterton for there to be a first double winner. That is fantastic. It really is fantastic. This race was stopped, as a couple were at Brands Hatch. Red flag because of a lap 1. Turn 1 incident, 2 cars in the gravel. Timo Jungling was one of them, the poor fella. Race 2 winner. Back down to earth with a bump there, as is the nature of motorsport. The highs are pretty outstanding, pretty incredible, but the lows are pretty common as well. So that's why we love it. That's what makes it so addictive for these drivers. But he'll be back, Timo, and hoping for some more success next time out. He was one of them, and I think it was an XL car. Was it Cole Hewitson? I can't remember off the top of my head, actually. I think there was an XL car in the gravel with him, though. So yeah, with that, JHR clean sweep of wins at Snet. And the final thing I wanted to talk about Chiara Battista again. I mentioned last time with the Brands Roundup how one of the many positives for this championship this season is, well, it has been for the last couple of years as well, is the coverage that women get. Alba Larson, Ella Lloyd, Abby Pulling. Now we got Chiara Battista, Daniela Sutton. Chiara with a good race 3 result at Brands, and this time she had the onboard camera for the broadcast race on the Sunday. So some good coverage for Chiara, which is fantastic. You know, the onboard camera can go to anyone, but they chose Chiara Battista because she knows that she is capable of getting right in the midst of the action, and lo and behold, she was. So that is fantastic to see. In terms of the overall championship, it is Dries van Langendonk, unsurprisingly, but the gap has been closed after Lewis Wells' pretty perfect weekend, really, as far as it can go. So that's taking him up to second. Scott Lindblom is third, just consistently good showings from Scott. He's creeping his way up there. Ethan Jeff Hall fourth, bit of a lull for him. No outstanding results really. He'll be looking to bounce back and let Dries know that he's not going away. Theo Palmer is fifth. Then it's Joseph Smith, Adam Alazari, Tommy Harfield, Ethan Lennon, and then Kit Bolofsky is actually 10th there for Fortet. So good to see from Kit. In terms of the Rookie Cup, it is Van Landendonk from Al Saber, and Cameron Nelson and Mate Kobakidze. And in terms of the Teams Cup, it's tight as you'd expect, but the top 3 are still High Tech from Rodin from Virtuosi. JHR Developments now have jumped from last to 4th, or 1 from last to 4th. They were way down there, and now they are 4th because double win for Lewis Werrell and a win for Timmy Unling. It is a hat trick and an absolutely perfect weekend for JHR Developments at Snetterton in the British F4. Well, we've got the pleasure of covering 2 mini championships this weekend, but we'll start with the big boys, the JCWs, that are the regulars on the TOCA package. And delight for Josh Porter, because that maiden pole that was taken off him so harshly with the tyre infringement at Brands Hatch Indy was restored because he put it on pole, whacked it on the front row at Snetterton. So much delight for Josh there and the Accelerate crew. Tom Ovenden was second, with Algieri third, Max Edmondson fourth, and Alex Solly fifth. Nathan Edwards, Harry Campy, Harry Hitton, and then the JCW Sport title contenders from last year, Archie Johnson and Henry Howarth, completed your top 10. Now, I mentioned there Porter being disqualified for a tyre infringement at Brands, and there was another one at Snetterton. This time, Sam Dornell, Pro Alloys man. Yeah, tyre infringement strikes again, and that is so bizarre for it to happen not only once but twice. I think there's some new regulations with it this year, and it's just catching the teams out. And I think there was an incident in there's an instance in the Mini Challenge Trophy as well with Finn Groom, I think, and I'm not sure it was a tyre infringement as such in terms of with the tyres themselves, but I think he brought the wrong ones over, or I don't know, but there's a bit of a clearly some complication with the tyres this year in the mini paddock, but it's making a bit of drama going into the weekend anyway. Race 1 then, and Josh Porter took a commanding lights to flag victory, followed by Max Edmondson and Olivier Algieri. Tom Ovenden was 4th, Harry Hitton 5th, and Alex Solly, Nathan Edwards, Harry Campy, Henry Howarth, and Charlie Hand completed your top 10. Again, with this one not being on the broadcast, I don't know much about it. I've read up on the report, and the only main thing I've picked out really is that Josh Porter was over 1 second clear by lap 2, so he built up a really nice early gap with the battle pack squabbling behind, and yeah, just controlled the pace from there. So a brilliant showing there from Josh. Race 2, and it was Charlie Hand that took the win. Sam Dorner was 2nd, Henry Howarth 3rd, Harry Campy 4th, Alex Solly 5th, Tom Ovenden 6th, Josh Porter 7th, Harry Hitton 8th, Nathan Edwards 9th, and Max Edmondson 10th. Now, Archie Johnson was due to start on pole for this one. Richard John Neal was reading the grids out for race 2, only to his surprise to find out that Archie Johnson wasn't there. In fact, he'd been moved to the back. He was disqualified from race 1. So Charlie Hand gave him the perfect opportunity to convert his pole position into a maiden win, and he did. He certainly did. Yeah, very relieved Charlie Hand, I think. Just relieved to pay the crew back, I think, with a big win for Charlie there, which is amazing. Sam Dornell fighting back to 2nd, after his qualifying disqualification, and Alex Solly in 5th. He had a bit of a shocker last year, didn't he, with Napa? It just didn't work out for him. He's always had the pace in the Coopers, been a very consistent front runner there, but it just didn't work out for him last year. Proud always has been seemingly a very good switch for Alex. So long may this good form continue. Maiden podium for Henry Howarth as well. It was only his JCW debut at Brands the other weekend, and he's already on the podium. He had a good qualifying at Brands, a couple of good race. His race pace was there as well. And he, did this podium with a bit of a brake issue as well. The rears kept locking up on him going into particularly Wilson's hairpin. So I don't know whether there's a bit of a brake bias adjustment that they couldn't quite get spot on there, but nonetheless, it didn't really affect the overall performance, and Henry brought it home. One driver to mention is Olivier Algieri, such a talented driver, but he unfortunately had to retire on the final lap on this one, which was a real shame. And then this was a fantastic race, actually. Alex Solly versus Sam Dornall. It was phenomenal. And then you had Harry Hicton in the mix as well for a little bit. They were 3 wide down the back straight at one point. Yeah, like Sam Dornall and Alex Solly doing their best not to knock chunks out of each other's car. It was as respectful and as fierce as it can get between teammates. It was very, very well judged and managed from the pair of them. Final race of the weekend, and it was the second win of the weekend for Josh Porter. Tom Overton second, Algieri third, bouncing back from his disappointing retirement in race 2. Alex Solly fourth, another good showing from him. Harry Hicton fifth, Harry Campy sixth. Max Edmondson, relatively quiet one for Max. And Nathan Edwards 8th, Charlie Hand 9th, and Joe Tanner getting in your top 10. So yeah, the main talking point is what a weekend it was for Josh Porter, Maiden pole and 2 race wins. He was into, I don't know if it was Louise or Nikki, but one of them was saying, like, you can't ask for much more, can you? And Josh was like, yeah, this was, an absolutely made a weekend for him, and hopefully he can push on from here. He's only 7th in the championship, leaving Snetterton, but he's got the momentum. Now going into Autumn Park, he's got the momentum, so fingers crossed he can push on from this. Sam Dornall in this one put his Clear Cup Europe experience to good use, because I said he did well to not knock chunks out of his teammate in race 2. Well, he was a bit more ruthless in race 3, and he was handed 2 penalties for contact. I can't remember what the separate instances were, but yeah, to get 2 separate penalties for contact is he's done a decent job of that, as Sam. And yeah, like I said, putting all of his Clear Cup experience to good use, because it's a rather physical championship is Clear Cup, and yeah, I'm not sure he was making too many friends in race 3, but Tom Overton leaves Snetterton with the points lead still from Max Edmondson, from Olivier Algieri, and it's Alex Solly 4th, Harry Hicton 5th, with Sam Dornall 6th. That's really close, actually. There you can see Alex Solly on 287, Hicton on 286, Dornall on 283, and Porter on 282. Fantastic force on that. Charlie Hand is 8th, Harry Campy 9th, and Nathan Edwards is only 10th. Something's just not quite clicking for Nathan, is it? In the mini challenge. I hope he can push for more podiums as the season progresses. That is for certain. On to the minis, if you will, the Mini Coopers for the Mini Challenge Trophy. This is the first time they've made their TOCA appearance this season, and the first time I've been able to actually watch them as well. Fantastic championship, as always. Brilliant platform for the step up to the minis. The mini ladder works really well. And also this championship is a fantastic one for junior drivers who have just come out of junior championships to come into. There's a couple of them this season as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it was fantastic to have the mini carnival, mini festival, as they were calling it, with both the JCWs and the Coopers on the support package. I think they should do this. This should be a regular feature now. I think the minis provide some of the best racing across the weekend. Can't wait for these to be at Thruxton with us. They're always amazing around there. So yeah, much to look forward to for the remainder of the season for these. Let's do qualifying then. And it was Luca Marinoni Osborne, who's been in the Coopers now for quite a few seasons, and it's nice to see him mount a proper title assault this season. So Marinoni Osborne was on pole, and Matt Luff second, Josh Wilby third, then Josh Salvadore, Ka-chow, the Lightning McQueen livery, looking proper. Alex Keane's fifth, reigning champion, remember. Not too usual these days that drivers choose to return to the formula that they've just won in, so it's nice to see Alex looking to defend his title. Then Chris Doble, sixth, yes, is related to Mikey Doble. Henry Foote, seventh. Ashley Gregory, eighth. Harry Smith, ninth. And Richard Jepp, 10th. So we look at the junior drivers then. Josh Salvadore is coming out of Junior Saloon Car, the Citroen Saxos on the BARC. You can watch them on the streams, BARC streams. They've been at Donington this year, they've been at Cadwell this year already, and a couple of others. Croft as well, they've been at Croft. So yeah, they're always good to watch, the little Saxos. And Josh Salvadore carrying his Lightning McQueen livery across, and already competitive as well, which is fantastic. Harry Smith, he's also done junior saloons in the past as well. And then you've got Chris Doble and Isaac Doble, who have come from the BRSCC Fiesta Juniors. They were a sort of title battle between themselves. They're the family title battle in that championship, which I believe went, I believe it went Isaac's way, but I could be wrong. But yeah, fantastic platform for junior drivers to make a step up and continue their racing journey. Matt Luff in P2, he's a bit of a one-make specialist, is Matt. He's done Civic Cup, Audi TT Cup, I think, and now this, and he does well in what every race is, does Matt. So he's definitely a name to expect to be seeing topping the time sheets throughout the course of the year. Race 1, and Marinoni Osborne converted his pole into a win. Josh Wilby was second with Matt Luff third, and Josh Salvadore fourth, Harry Smith fifth, Henry Foote sixth. Henry Foote, another Fiesta Junior graduate. Ashley Gregory seventh, Leo Richardson eighth, there, good result for him. Isaac Doble ninth, and Richard Jepp in 10th. So yeah, not much to talk about for this one. It wasn't on the broadcast, so I don't know much to say. But Marinoni Osborne, as I was mentioning a couple of moments ago, it's just nice to see him put together some more consistent results and look to mount a proper title assault after a few years of being a good solid midfield runner in the Coopers. Race 2 then, and it was reigning champ Alex Keanes who took the win. Nice to see Alex has got sponsor now. He's got the backing. His car last year literally just had Alex on the side of it. It's nice now that after picking up the title, he's been able to get some sponsors on board. Salvadore was second with Marinoni Osborne, another podium for him. Ashley Gregory fourth, moving to Accelerate Motorsport this year is Ashley. It's a fantastic move for her, a fantastic opportunity, and we wish her all the best. Isaac Doble fifth, Henry Foote sixth, Harry Smith seventh, then Giovanni Santora in eighth, Matt Luff ninth, and Daniel Patterson was 10th. Can't say Dexter there, don't want to get the Pattersons mixed up. Giovanni Santora there, finishing 8th. He's actually come over from America to race here, so it's amazing to know that this championship has caught the attentions of drivers abroad. And yeah, Giovanni come over from the States across the pond for a full campaign of Mini Cooper action, which is amazing. Now, another thing I want to point out is the Vera Alliance Racing Academy this year are doing something a bit special because they've got an all-female driver lineup. They've got Beanie and Elena Reese. They've got Leona Theobald, and they've got Lexi Powell, who is another junior saloon car graduate. A bit of a nightmare in this race for the Reeses, actually, with one ended up rolling over at that high curb just before the bomb hole, and then one ended up in smokes. But how amazing is that? This is again another championship now which is starting to see more female participation, and to put together an all-female driver lineup is absolutely fantastic. They interviewed Pete Osborne, Alliance boss, and he was saying that it feels like it's time to give something back to the motorsport community, and that is getting women more involved in the championship. And what a fantastic thing to be doing. F4, I've mentioned it with F4, they're starting to incorporate more young female drivers into it as well, and it's just great because it just shows that they are equally as capable as any male driver is in contesting for strong results. I think Leona and Lexi have both just knocking around outside the top 10 in the races at Snetterton. That's fantastic, and hopefully we'll get some top 10s, maybe even top 5s come the end of the year for them. Leona Theobald used to do Janetta Juniors. She was quick in them. Yeah, Lexi Powell I've seen, and I don't know anything about the Reeses. I think their background is more sort of motocross type stuff. So yeah, it's good to see drivers from different disciplines also wanting to come over and take a look at this fantastic opportunity that Alliance are putting on. In terms of the final race of the weekend, then it was Luca Marinoni Osborne who took a second win of the day, of the weekend even, much like Josh Porter did in the JCWs. And Ashley Gregory with her strongest finish of the weekend there in second, Henry Foote third, Harry Smith was fourth, followed by Josh Wilby, Matt Luff, Isaac Doble, Leo Richardson with another eighth, Chris Doble ninth, and Alex Keynes only 10th in this one. This was a fantastic battle up the front. Marinoni Osborne had eventually been able to break clear, and the battle for second behind was absolutely anyone's guess. And Ashley Gregory was just a masterclass really from her in timing and judgment, and she nipped through on the final lap to claim second position, which was mega from her. Shows why she has earned the move to accelerate from her family-run team. And yeah, that pretty much rounds up the weekend. And the final thing is Richard Jepp had absolutely dreadful luck. He was taken out on the first lap in both races 2 and 3. So yeah, nightmare for him. He's done City Car Cup, those Citroen C1s. He's quick in them. So yeah, another bit of a one-mate specialist is Richard Jepp. Shame we didn't get to see the best of him at Snetterton. But yeah, with that, I can't wait to see what these guys have on offer for us at Thruxton. And I think they make a couple. Is it Donington as well? They're making an appearance at as well. I should be there for that. So very excited. Let's talk about the championship briefly then. It's Alex Keynes that leads by a whopping 4 points to Luca Marinoni Osborne. Then Matt Luff is only 4 points behind him. So there's your top three with Josh Wilby, Harry Smith, Josh Salvadore, Ashley Gregory, Isaac Doble, Chris Doble, and Daniel Patterson completing your top 10. Let's finish with the Porsche Carrera Cup then. And Sid Smith in Q1 finally delivered, finally sorted it out, and brought the pace that we know he can have to take the honours in that one. Voisin was second, and Will Jenkins third, Jack Sherwood fourth, Isaac Phelps, Max Coates, Archie Clark, Stephen Jelly, Ollie Jackson, and Jacob Toffs. Yeah, I said in the Brands review that Sid, qualifying for him has really been the biggest letdown of the first couple of rounds this season. His race pace hasn't been exceptional either, but qualifying was the easy thing to sort out. And yeah, he's got a couple of years under his belt now in this car. He knows it well. So I was expecting some more. He was my tip for the championship. I can't imagine he will lift it come the end of the season, but it's racing, anything can happen. But yeah, it's just nice to see him bringing the pace that we know he can. And Q2, it was Will Jenkins. So Callum Voisin was not on the top step for either of the two qualifying sessions, which is good to see. I've got nothing against Callum, but we want some more competition for him, so that was good. And his Rosland Gold with Century Motorsport teammate, actually, Isaac Phelps, pipped him in this one. Isaac was second, Voisin was third, and Jelly was fourth, and Sid Smith only fifth in this one. Archie Clark sixth, and then Max Coates, Jacob Toffs, Jack Sherwood, and Ollie Jackson. And what these two qualifying sessions show is, despite the relatively small nature of the grid this season, they are very evenly matched drivers. Q1 Sherwood was fourth, Q2 he was ninth. So it does show you the very evenly matched nature of the grid, which is good. It makes up for the low numbers. Race 1 then, and Voisin took this one from Jenkins from Sherwood, Smith fourth, Phelps fifth, and Clark sixth, Coates, Jackson, Jelly, and Toffs. Another Voisin win at the end of the day is one that Will Jenkins and Sid Smith put up a good fight. I think Sid Smith did really well for most of the race. This one wasn't on the broadcast, but from memory, Sid drove well for most of the race, and it was a case of sort of floodgates are open when one comes past, the rest do. So yeah, Voisin with the win. Another DNF as well for Michael Keohane. So that's the first 5 races. I think he's only finished one of them. It's unbelievable. Quite frankly, tragic luck for Michael. And another good result for Jack Sherwood there, an overall podium in P3. So, much promise from him. Race 2, and it was Will Jenkins who took this one from Voisin. It was good, and really good to see. Voisin put the pressure on towards the end, but Jenkins held firm, and yeah, was adamant that Voisin wasn't getting past him this time. Phelps was third, and Jelly fourth, Clark fifth, Really good weekend for him. Jack Sherwood 6th, then Max Coates, Jacob Toffs, Sid Smith only 9th here, and Ollie Jackson. Smith was wild in this one. Yeah, lockups galore, particularly at the turn 2, the hairpin. And it cost him loads of, your tyres, and then it cost him positions as well. So yeah, Smith was a little bit of a wild child in this one, very ragged. Another quiet weekend for Max Coates as well. He's been relatively subdued for him this year so far. Hopefully he'll be in the mix a little bit more come the remaining weekends. I'm sure Max would like that as well. But he's still, we'll see in the championship standings, he's still doing a very decent job indeed. Just going under the radar and bagging points. So still solid campaign at the minute for Max. But the main driver I want to talk about is Archie Clark, and that is because a 6th and a 5th, plus 2 very solid showings in quali as well. Former Ginetta Junior driver, Ginetta GT Championship driver, GT Cup driver. Last season, he was in the GT Championship in the Ginettas and won it overall. And then he was in the GT Cup in the GTH class and won that as well in an Aston Martin, I believe it was. So 2 titles for Archie in 2025. And he's shown his pedigree already in the Carrera Cup 2026. Donington was a slow start. Then Brands, you could see a little bit better, a little bit more pace, able to keep up on the tail with the likes of Jackson, Jelly, Sherwood, those sort of drivers. And now, really well and truly in the mix at Snetterton. So I look forward to Thruxton, seeing how that goes. Thruxton won't have been a circuit he'd have gone to last year. GT Cup or the GT Championship didn't go. So that could be a little bit of a challenge for Archie to overcome. But I've got no doubt that he'll tackle it head on and produce the goods. Let's look at the championship points then, leaving the 3rd weekend of the year for them. Voisin leads, but it's only by 6 points to Will Jenkins. The way the points work, you think Voisin would be miles in front, but he is not. Those two are, though, miles in front of Sid Smith and Max Coates, tied for 3rd on 24. There you go. Jenkins is on 57, and then Smith and Coates are on 24. And Archie Clark is on 23, Isaac Phelps on 22, and Jack Sherwood on 20. So you can see again how close this field is this year. Pro-Am is also very close. There's 3 points in it between Stephen Jelly and Ollie Jackson. And it's Jacob Toffs, Ollie Meadows and Jonathan Moore quite a way back. And then the Masters, it is Carl Cavers from Henry Dawes, from Michael Keohane. Poor old Michael. Hopefully he'll get some good luck soon. But yeah, for these guys, it is a break for Alton Park. The Sprint Challenge will join them. Will join the package then. And it's on to Thruxton, fast and absolutely terrifying. We'll see who can come out on top for that one. But that's the Snetterton weekend done. Please do like and subscribe and drop a comment as well, and I'll get back to you. Let me know your thoughts on the weekend.